Hey everybody. So in our last episode, we were wiring up the dash, and as I just showed you guys, the dash is wired, and not only is it wired, it is mounted in the car. It is ready to go. So I don't remember what you guys remember from a couple other episodes ago, and yes, I know that all that wiring just looks gross back there, but that'll probably get painted black eventually. Anyway, I don't know what you remember, but basically I had bought some of these plastic spacers. You can get them right at Aubuchon or a hardware store that were about double that length. And I just put a sheet metal screw with one of those spacers behind it right there, and right there where that screw is, where the old dash mounted. And it's pretty darn sturdy. There's a little bit of flex in the middle, but otherwise it's not going anywhere, and it's great, and it works, and it's wonderful. I also got my headlights going up and down again with that switch, and of course with the headlights as well. And it turns out, I'm not sure which plug, but those two plugs need to be plugged in. I had unplugged them when we pulled all the computer stuff out of that panel there, and never plugged them back in, and that's what had caused them to not go down anymore. So I plugged those back in, and boom, I have headlights that go up and down. In an effort to try and make it a little less ugly back there, I was looking, and I get the feeling that I might be able to use this shroud that was covering all that mess with the original dashboard. So we're gonna try and see if I can do that. I'm probably gonna have to cut off these ears here. There's one on each side where I'm using those holes to mount the dash that's in there now. But I think if I do that, it'll flex around those switches nice, and I'll be in business. Forget the shroud for a second. It's the next day. Basically, there was a lot of space left around the speedometer, so I think that we're just not going to bother with that, at least not right now. That's a cosmetic thing anyway, and that's not what this series is about. What we will do, though, is get back to the wiring. So I had a couple new cables made up to go to the battery. And here is the old cable. This right there, the negative terminal, was also bolted to the chassis right on that section there. And that went in between the engine and transmission, or right behind the starter on the VG30, the 3-liter V6 that was in there. And then that goes down to the starter, the actual starter. So what I'm gonna do with these is basically I'm just going to be replacing those. What I did was this is a 4.5 foot long cable. I did 2 gauge for everything just to make sure I had good enough cable. And the negative terminal is gonna run from this side back across down here and bolt to here, or it's gonna run down there across and bolt to that fuel pump block off plate right there. I then have this 4 gauge cable that I'm going to use to get my chassis ground, and I will just go right off that one that's bolted down and run this to the chassis somewhere. Then of course this positive terminal, this is just going to go down to the starter, and once I put my little battery clamps there in the middle of the toolbox on the end of this, I will also crimp down this, which is all the power that runs the interior. Now, where was that? That was actually bolted down on this rail of the frame. You can kind of see where it was there. That's one of the bolt holes right there. It was just bolted down in there. There's one hole, and there's the other hole. Let's see if I can get it to focus. There it is. Yeah, how do you guys like all the cat hair mods we're doing to this? Apparently all winter my cats have been climbing all over this thing, getting it nasty and spreading their hair everywhere. So that's fun. Hopefully most of that shakes off when we get it started. Okay, so we got the battery cables hooked up and everything else, as you can see. There's Dad. So this, we ended up deciding to go down there for that ground, and I used that other 4-gauge cable I talked about before, and just ran it right up to where the body ground was before. So that's all just taped together, and I zip tied it to this big harness here. Then this is key power. We got this key power from this, oh, my finger, there it is. This top right part of this relay switch on the same relay that we jumped. Now that's a black and white wire with a little red stripe. There it is, it comes out. And we ran it there for our key power. And then everything on the key power, we have, what is this? I can't see it. That's the key power. And then we have a fuel pump, the fuel pump wire, positive fuel pump wire comes up there. This distributor wire, which comes off the, oh, where is it? The right clip, that right white clip there, goes to the key power. And then that next one goes up this green wire to the back of the tack and the dash. And then over here, this is our constant power. So, oh, I forgot to mention, the choke is hooked up. On the carburetor, this is a Edelbrock 600 four-barrel carburetor. And the male spade coming off of this goes to positive, which goes to the key power, like I just showed you. And then this, the female spade connector on the choke is the ground, which goes over to here, which is just a little chassis ground that we have made. So then looking back at the constant power, the fan switch in the gooseneck comes up here around and goes on there, and this other part goes to the fan. And this is off the alternator, which also goes around there and connects to the stud on the alternator. Now, the plug for the alternator, this little wire here is going to the back of the dummy light in the dash. And then this, we just jump to the stud on the alternator. All right, so over here on the front of the carburetor, we have blocked this off. This is for a constant vacuum advance, which we didn't want, so we blocked that off. And we blocked this off. Now this is for advance when you're on the throttle.
It's ported vacuum.
Ported vacuum, Dad says. And that just goes off this hose around to the nipple on the distributor there. Timing advance. We also picked up this bracket. I talked about this in an earlier video, but it comes with this too. And I did have to buy this little hook here, the actual stud on this lever to hook up this kickdown cable. And got that hooked up. We got the temperature sensor all screwed in. That's ready to go. We put 5 quarts of ATF in it. So we'll check that once we get it running. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Yep, and then we got the booster hooked up to the vacuum on the back of the carburetor. We also just put in that brass plug right there. One other thing I forgot to mention, this check valve in between the brake booster and the carburetor, that is what came with the Nissan brake booster. That was already in the car. So that's not like an aftermarket part or some weird thing that I had to do. Just a couple other things we did while we were working on it today. I replaced the starter and the alternator just because They were old and gross, and it's probably better off just replacing them now. And a bunch of other stuff that I'm probably forgetting. Yeah, so we got a lot done today, and hopefully this thing's gonna start really soon. If you like the project and you like seeing it all get done and all of my really helpful instructions then don't forget to like and subscribe and share the videos so that all your other friends that are trying to put small block Chevys in a little Nissan will see it and hopefully get some benefit from this. Bye. I don't know how it works.